You're listening to Denver Wine Radio, the podcast about Colorado wine. My name is Paul Bonaquisti. I'm the winemaker at Bonaquisti Wine Company, an urban winery I launched back in 2006 in Denver, Colorado, where I've been making and learning about wine ever since. I'm sitting down with other wineries and wine experts to find out what makes Colorado wine so unique and to help you find the wines you like to drink. And now, let's put some altitude in your glass.
My name is Doug Caskey. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Wine Industry Development Board. We are part of the markets division of the Colorado Department of Agriculture. So yes, I probably have one of the best government jobs in the state. Thank you. Been doing this for 22 years now. Before that, I was the wine manager and store manager at Boulder Liquor Mart, which sadly is now a hole in the ground. They're building an apartment. They're building an apartment building on that location. It's been gone for a couple of years. As a matter of fact, it seems like most of the places that I worked in the wine business are gone. So
Is there a correlation there?
I hope not.
Well, welcome back, Doug, to Denver Wine Radio.
It's great to be here, Paul.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're back, too.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's nice to be back and talking about Colorado wine. Lots changed in the last few years since you were last on the show. Why don't you bring us up to date?
Uh-oh. You know, people are always asking, how many wineries are there in Colorado? It's like,
yes,
because it's such a moving target. People are opening and closing, but I just did a count. It's like 160 wineries, plus I think it was a dozen or so of the big wineries, the manufacturing wineries, and then 16 vintners restaurants, which is a different license.
Right.
So we're 170-something. That includes people who just produce cider.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because when I did a count, there was actually what I came up with, and I didn't break it down. There was about 200 limited winery licenses listed on the state website.
Right.
Plus the 16 vintners restaurants that you were talking about.
Right. There's usually a lot of duplication for some reason. Plus, they also include tasting rooms. So if you have a separate tasting room, you're listed at least twice.
Okay.
So, it's confusing.
The good news is we're just shy of 200.
Yeah, there's a bunch. There's many out there. Like I said, that number includes cideries because cider is a wine. They are licensed as wineries. Also includes people who make mead, honey wine, and sake. Sake is kind of this odd duck that doesn't fit in anywhere else. So, literally the statute says, we can't figure out where to put this, so we'll call it wine. That's a slight change in the statute language, but it's pretty close. So.
So I know there's Colorado Sake Company. And is there more than one?
There used to be two. Now there's only one, Colorado Sake Company. And they're doing pretty well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't tried their product yet. But.
It's really interesting. I mean, they have a straightforward sake, and then they do several flavored sakes. So there's one with several fruit flavors. There's one, I think, with black tea, nice. Or with a tea essence. So really interesting stuff that works quite well, and somewhere between a seltzer and a flavored wine, and really interesting products, and they've seemed to be quite popular.
Yeah, and then also there's a winery in somewhere down in the Colorado Springs area. They're using lemons.
They're using citrus wine, which, I remember reading about that years ago in the federal statutes that you can make citrus wine. It's a separate class, and I was always wondering about that. Again, their wines are really good. They're totally different because, the base is citrus, and they're incredibly refreshing. Just vibrant flavors and several different flavorings mixed in. So they have like a lemon lime that makes a nice base for a margarita.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the name. I can't remember.
It's Evergood Elixirs.
That's right. Evergood Elixirs. Because they have one called Snow Pea.
Yes. Ski Bunny.
Yes.
Ski Bunny Pink. And then there's also another winery up in and forgive me because I can never keep Louisville straight from Lafayette, but it's in one of those towns. You know, they started out making the concentrate for spiced wine and sangria.
Right.
And that's become huge. It's called Decadent Saint. They also really filled a niche, and those products were huge, still are a huge hit in liquor stores, especially during the ski season when you can, warm it up and make a warm sangria, and great mixes.
Yeah, those are good. I haven't tried those, or maybe I think maybe the first few years I did happen to get a bottle. Yeah, really good stuff. And about talking about the citrus wine, I noticed this a few years ago. Out of Florida, they make a lot of orange wine.
Yeah. They
make these products for stores with a beer and wine. If you're a restaurant, you only have a beer and wine license, but you want to have a cocktail on the menu. They're orange wine based, but then they make them taste like a margarita or a whiskey sour.
They're really adaptable. If you think about Florida and most of the South, it's so humid. Normal vinifera grapes have mildew problems. So it's something they're constantly battling there, and the few grapes they do grow have unique native resistance to the mildew that grows down there. But citrus is a natural, and that's one of the things they came up with historically to get away from those problems that grapes had in the South.
Okay, when I started way back in 2006, word on the street was there was about, I don't know, at that time, 600-700 acres of grapes planted. Then over the years, I felt like it went up to about 1,000 acres of grapes in the state. But now
it's still about 750.
Yeah.
We were saying 1,000 acres for a while. I'm not sure we were ever able to find them all. And what's happened, we've had some bad vintages, some really difficult vintages. People did rip out grapes to go back to planting peaches, but we're still a good solid 750 acres, I think.
And that's good.
And I don't remember exactly when we talked, but for many years, we thought we were phylloxera free here. Phylloxera is the nearly microscopic mite that eats grapevine roots. We thought we were going to be exempt from that in Colorado. Well, turns out we're not. About 2015, we started seeing signs of it. It doesn't seem to be spreading quickly here, which is great news.
Yeah.
But it does mean that we are having to rethink our strategies. For years, we were able to use self-rooted vines, which means, you have Chardonnay on top and Chardonnay under the ground. Well, the European grapevines are susceptible to phylloxera because it's native to this country, and Europe never developed a resistance to it. So the solution over there was to graft Chardonnay onto Native American roots. We're slowly replanting a lot of Colorado vineyards to grafted rootstock to avoid problems with phylloxera down the road.
I remember when it first hit, but I haven't really heard much about it spreading. Like you said, it seemed like it got contained very, fairly quickly.
Right. And I'm not sure it would be accurate to say it is contained. I think it doesn't spread rapidly here.
Okay.
Washington State would be the same. Yeah. They've also discovered phylloxera more recently than we have. But again, whether it's our soils, somebody said, oh, well, it's too cold here, but phylloxera is native to upstate New York, so it's a lot colder there during the winter than it is here. There are, I think, many factors that slow it down.
Yeah, plus vineyard owners don't like to brag about it either. So they keep
that helps.
They keep it to themselves, I think.
Horst Gaspari, who's our state viticulturist working out of Grand Junction, one of the comments he made a few years ago is that some of those areas in Western Slope vineyards where we thought, oh, that's just low-lying and there's frequent cold damage there, maybe not. Maybe that was actually a phylloxera infestation in that area in the vineyard, and we just didn't realize it was here.
Yeah. Yeah, because he gave a real interesting presentation at Vinco, and with a lot of interesting facts. about Colorado. And I know because of weather, I just found this was just almost shocking. We had our lowest production of grapes since 1991 because of two October freezes.
Right in a row. Yeah. And they were, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was about a 70 or 80 degree temperature swing within 24 hours or so.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that it got as cold as it is today outside, but it got cold quickly, and it got colder than the grapes were ready for. Grapes gradually harden off in the fall and the early winter so that they can handle 0 degrees with some ease. And, to get down to 10 or 20 degrees suddenly in October, right after the harvest, was really devastating to the grapevine. So the second year in a row when that happened in 2020 really devastated the 2021 harvest.
Yeah. And the CSU climatologist presentation said they had measured the temperatures in October for the last 100 years in Colorado, and it hadn't been below 20 degrees except for 2 years, 2019 and 2020, when it went down to 10. So it's just amazing.
Yeah, hopefully these are just flukes of weather in Colorado and not some kind of indication of new trends. But I think, what happened even starting before then with some of the winter damage, people started paying attention more closely to some of the cold-tolerant grape varieties.
Yeah.
We saw more and more of those being planted to where in 2020, when we lost close to 100% of the vinifera grapes, the European grapes, we still had a fair amount of cold-tolerant grapes to be harvested. So, we're moving in the right direction, and those previous freezes have kind of taught us a lesson that we've recovered from.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that there's been more research and more plantings of cold hardy varietals, hybrids as they're known. Some people may not know about hybrids, but they're where they take vinifera grape and cross it with Native American grape.
Right.
Yeah.
And the process was first experimented with back when they found phylloxera in Europe, and they were trying to figure out how to breed resistance to the North American bug into European grapevines. So they started with trying to crossbreed, which wasn't terribly successful at phylloxera resistance at that time, which is why they went to the grafted rootstock. But it started that trend of combining characteristics. So, for instance, they have grape varieties that are resistant to some of those mold and mildew problems we talked about down in Florida. They have a lot of varieties that they've bred that are resistant down to 20, 30 below.
Wow.
The University of Minnesota is one of the leading creators of these grapes, and they need that up there.
They do
in Minnesota, but we are benefiting from that too. Some of those varieties do quite well here.
Yeah, and the stuff we've tasted over the last few months been really good. Petite Pearl is one that's very exciting.
Yes. Cabernet Dorsa is another one that Horst has been talking about.
Wow.
Aramella for the whites.
Aramella, and that's we had tried that from Plum Creek.
Right.
They had a winner, gold cup or a Governor's Cup winner with their
right. And Aramella, good example because one of its parents is Muscat. The vinifera parent is Muscat, so you still have that wonderful Muscat aromatics to it, but you've got a little different flavor structure underneath it, and it's a wonderful wine. Especially when you blend it like Plum Creek did.
Well, and today I have a bottle of Carlson Vineyards NFSW, not safe for work. That's what that stands for. And maybe
but
like
we
to try
are working, so it's okay.
Okay. I guess it depends what type of work you're doing.
But no, this one is also hybrids. I don't remember the blend.
Yeah, I know Vidal Blanc is
yeah.
the main grape in this. I can't, but I looked it up and I couldn't find what else was in it. But let's give it a whirl.
Sure, you bet.
Okay.
Really nice aroma on this.
Oh yeah, it smells. It has a Sauvignon Blanc type of smell to it.
Mm-hmm. But with just a touch more flowers, the floral range of Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. I'll be sure to do my slurping into them.
Yeah, that's it. So. We don't have to add any sound effects. We're making our own.
What I love about this is, it's very aromatic up front, like you say, the Sauvignon Blanc character, but then really clean and crisp on the finish. And I would say this is completely dry. It might have a touch of residual sugar in the middle, but not much.
Yeah, not much. It tastes dry to me. It has that really nice citrus component all the way through and on the finish. But yeah, like a little bit of I don't want to say it's almost stone fruit in the middle, but yeah, I guess that's what I describe it. But super delish.
Nice wine to have with fish. I'm thinking swordfish or sea bass or.
I'm thinking chicken fajitas.
Okay,
Doug.
all right. I'm there.
That's my go-to all the time. So, well, that's nice. Yeah, Carlson Vineyards NSFW wine, which is not safe for work. I know they have a red out. I'm not sure. This is probably long gone because it was a Governor's Cup winner back in 2019.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I've been holding on to that for you.
Thank you. I'm glad you did. And it's held up really well. I don't see it fading at all here, even though it's a 3-year-old aromatic white. You'd think some of that bouquet would start to go away. That's still very nice.
Yeah, super delish. Great job, Garrett Portra from Carlson Vineyards.
So I think they created this label, the NSFW label, as kind of a lower end entry level blend.
Oh yeah.
So at the time, I'm thinking this was around a $10-12 bottle on the liquor store shelf. So
wow.
Yeah.
I mean that's a great deal. Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at their NSFW red, their 2019 red. It's $12 right off their website.
That's great. Yeah.
Incredible value there. Okay, so Vidal Blanc, I'm not sure how many acres of that is being grown, but there's probably a small pocket of it.
There are, I think, several growers who are experimenting with it, but yeah, it's not huge, and it ends up in that other category when you look at the listings for by variety here in Colorado.
Right. Yeah, and I was looking at the pie chart recently, and it still looks like Chardonnay, Merlot, Riesling, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Right.
All right around like 10% each.
Yeah.
Give or take
a little bit.
Yeah.
They're still the strong ones that are most prevalent. Cabernet Franc, which a lot of people think should be our signature grape in Colorado, is down around 7 or 8%.
Yeah.
If I might digress on signature varieties a bit, because people are always saying, well, look at Oregon. The Willamette Valley is known for Pinot Noir. Well, that's great. On the other hand, there's a lot of other areas of Oregon that don't grow Pinot Noir.
Sure.
So they kind of get left out of that. And that's why I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, this is where we're hanging our hat in Colorado.
Right.
Because we have such a diversity of climates, of soil structures, and what works in the Grand Valley may not work quite as well in the West Elks AVA or down in Montezuma County.
Right. I agree with that. Because when I think of Washington, I don't necessarily zero in on one particular grape, but I know that I know Syrah is really good out of Washington. Cabernet Sauvignon is, Pinot Gris. So they have a lot of things that are good. Exactly. And so it just raises up the, Washington, so we can do, and it's the same in Colorado. We have a lot of varietals that do fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, including Malbec.
Yes.
Has been one of my favorites over the years. Tempranillo, which I got to start working with just in 2018. So I'd like to see more of those, more Spanish grapes and things going forward.
I don't know if you were around, but the story behind Tempranillo in Colorado it must have been 2000, 2001. Richard Smart, who's a world-renowned viticulturist out of Australia, he came to Colorado to talk about growing grapes. Mm-hmm. And, his observation was that our climate and terrain reminded him a lot of La Mancha in Spain, right up kind of on the foothills of the Pyrenees, really cold winters, hot summers. And he said, you guys should think about Tempranillo.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of enterprising growers back then who planted it. And yeah, sure enough, it is really well suited to the climate. Although I think we went through a couple of years where it wasn't as cold hardy as we'd like.
Right.
But it's bounced back and people are making some great Tempranillos. You had one, right?
Yes, yeah. I've made some really good Tempranillo. In fact, my first shot at it, that 2018, ended up in the Governor's Cup.
That's right.
And then 2019 was a bit of a challenge because of the freeze coming in October, where we had to pick early. And then I made a 2020 Tempranillo. The harvest was really short that year. And of course, nothing in 21. And that vineyard sadly got wiped out in that freeze of 2020, late October freeze.
Well, we do have several. I'm trying to remember who I just saw. Tempranillo rosés, which I think in some of those years, like 2019, 2020, where you've got a rush picking and maybe it's not quite as ripe as you wanted.
Right.
I've had some really lovely rosés made out of Tempranillo here too.
Yeah, I should have thought of that. But anyway, so grape growing in Colorado, when you look at the weather chart, obviously we know the Grand Valley and the West Elks near Hotchkiss and Paonia. Those are our two AVAs, and we know we can grow grapes there. So then there's this undiscovered country, that's what I like to call it here in Colorado, which is the Four Corners area. Mm-hmm. And then something new I'd never heard of, an area in Colorado called Paradox Valley.
I had to look it up on Google.
Yes.
This was a result of some of the climate studies by the Colorado Climate Center at CSU. And, they did data comparisons of cold temperatures and freezes and growing days. And they ended up identifying a couple of areas. There's a lot of more area in Montezuma County down in the Four Corners than we realized. And I think, there have been a few growers down there who've taken advantage of that. John Sutcliffe, Guy Drew.
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot more potential down there than we know. But Paradox Valley is that weird little strip. I don't remember the highway, but it's probably the westernmost north-south highway in the state. Kind of runs from Whitewater Hill down through to Telluride.
Yeah.
It's sort of the back road to Telluride.
Yeah. So picture that you're in Palisade, you're in Grand Junction, and you head south towards Telluride, and you're on the highway, and you're about halfway there, and if you look to the right, to the west, that's about Paradox Valley.
Right. And I remember driving that way to Telluride once because I'd heard about it, and I thought, well, what is this? Absolutely beautiful drive, but there's nothing there.
Right.
It is really isolated. However, maybe that's what makes it such good grape growing areas. But I think that's an area we need to explore.
Yeah. We do need to explore it. It's so far away from everything, and it takes some real unique individuals to go after that and plant grapes.
Right. Because you are, like I said, you're a long way from most everything. Probably you're even further away from big cities and grocery stores than you are in Cortez.
Yeah.
Because at least in Cortez, you can run across the border into Shiprock, New Mexico, and get your groceries. But yeah, Paradox Valley is a little more remote. And then there's another area the Climate Center identified, which is the southeast side of the Wet Mountains down in Pueblo County. So the Wet Mountains would sort of be the southern tail of the Front Range. There's some areas there that would seem to be suited to vinifera. Again, this is based on an analysis of the data and the weather history.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to go plant grapes and test it out. But I was excited to see that because the Front Range certainly seems to show a lot of potential. But, we've had issues with hail on the Front Range frequently. There's a guy in Parker.
Oh, wow.
And he was growing some hybrids, and he was excited and enthused. And about the fourth or fifth year, he just got wiped out by hail.
Oh, wow.
So, if we do hail in that part of the state, we need to look at hail netting, just like bird netting for grapes. It's something they do in Argentina.
Oh, I didn't realize
that. Protect the crop, and they do it in some areas for apples too.
Well, and I know in Brighton, where I grew up,
Yeah.
a lot of farmers, agricultural farmer there. I know they have like hail guns or something. Ooh. I don't know exactly really know the process. But
you shoot something into the clouds, and it supposedly creates precipitation before the hailstones get really huge.
That sounds right. I know it stops the hail.
Yeah.
That's the hope. So, well, I have people, I have family out in Pueblo, Colorado. So we just need to find, I need to find a connection out in the county.
Yeah.
Out in Pueblo County.
Do.
And see what's going on. And I do remember somebody growing grapes in Pueblo years ago that Clyde Sparrow used to buy from, and I'm not sure if they're still active. Or
I haven't heard about those people for a while, so I'm not sure either.
Yeah, and then at one point there was a woman out in Burlington.
Right. I think they finally decided to give up their grapes.
Did they? Yeah.
I mean, they were, as far as I know, primarily wheat growers. They tried the grapes for several years, and part of their problem is they were so isolated as far as the wine and grape industry that it was hard to get their grapes to market. And I remember her calling me and saying, how can I get wineries more interested? It's like, well,
and I talked to her a few times, and this was at least 10 years ago. I don't feel like maybe me as a winemaker, I was not ready to make hybrids and present them to my customers at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now with the way the wine market is, and there's a lot of fun, experimental and different styles of wines, this is a great time to put those grapes out into the market.
Well, one of the things I think that's happened, and maybe it's just a matter of necessity because of the climate, but people are working harder to really make quality wine from the hybrids. As somebody said, nobody ever treated the hybrids with respect when they were making wine. It was like, all we can get is Marquette. We'll make it, whatever. But now people are really eliciting all of the qualities out of Marquette that make it a really nice grape, and all the other varieties too. So I think it's partially a change in mentality.
Yeah.
And maybe it's necessity, but you're right. 10 years ago, I remember having a conversation with a grower in Palisade who just was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to sell hybrids to wineries. They're just not going to buy it. But when I was out there last year, he was raving about not Aramella, Traminette.
Oh, Traminette.
About how Traminette was doing so well for him. And I'm like, is this the same guy who was just saying a few years ago that he'd never be able to sell this? And now he's having a great time with it.
And, of course, we're not supposed to call them hybrids.
That's true.
Interspecific cultivar.
And we should follow that up because the term hybrids usually brings to mind genetic manipulation. And no, we are actually crossing grapes, breeding them the way they have been bred for thousands of years. It is a very slow and tedious process. So it takes thousands of failures to come up with one good variety. And that's years and years in the making. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, these are not some kind of Franken grape. They are, true new breeds of grapes with new characteristics, things that have been happening in vineyards for thousands of years.
Yeah, that's grapes. They've crossed naturally over thousands of years and create a new variety every time.
That was a great story I heard many years ago. Apparently, the Pinot family is not, actually, many grapes are not genetically stable, but the Pinot family, the pigmentation genes were not particularly stable. People in Burgundy had planted Pinot Noir, and after a couple of years, they were harvesting Pinot Blanc. Same vines, same grapes, they just sort of shifted a little bit. Yeah. So, that sort of thing has been going on forever.
All right. Well, St. Vincent is a hybrid.
Yes, it is.
A interspecific cultivar. But, and so I happen to have a bottle of St. Vincent 2018 from Whitewater Hill out in Palisades. So let's try that and see what you think.
Yeah, Whitewater planted several of these hybrids. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice little cling right there.
And they have a rosé of St. Vincent too that was very nice.
Yeah, and St. Vincent is similar to Sangiovese.
Okay.
As the way I read about it, and which has always intrigued me about this grape. I love working with Italian varietals. Yeah, so it has this nice spiced cherry nose to it.
Yeah, it's kind of an exotic spice almost. I mean, yeah, you could tell me this was Sangiovese and I'd buy it, but I'm terrible at blind tasting. However, I love that deep dark fruit that has a great structure to it.
You're right. Nice dark fruit, but real good acidity. Yeah, you might be able to fool somebody thinking they're drinking Sangiovese, or some other Italian varietal because there's thousands just within Italy.
I was going to say I'm easily fooled, so.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I would love to see this paired with a red sauce on pasta or something.
Yeah, so that's St. Vincent, like we said, Grand Valley, Colorado, Whitewater Hill, and 2018. That's delish. And I think that one comes in at like $18-19.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still a really good value, and a wine that I think will really benefit from food. However, it's very pleasant on its own.
This is a strange place to have a vineyard, but there was a small vineyard in Newcastle. So for those that don't know, if you're driving west on I-70 and you pass Glenwood Springs, and it's headed that way out.
It's still in the Glenwood Canyon, but it's in the east or western edge of Glenwood Canyon, so it's a little not quite as steep. I've always driven past there thinking there must be places to grow grapes here because the aspect of the slopes seems to be in the right direction, good air drainage. So that's good to know. I didn't realize
I was surprised. And it was so it was really a small hobby vineyard, and they had Baco Noir as part of their planning.
Yes.
And so I had picked up, I don't know, a couple, 200-300 pounds, whatever they had one year, and made some Baco Noir as just as an experiment and see how it would come out.
And
it came out. But it's kind of like you said earlier, I needed to take a more serious approach to it, and I could have. It was nice. Let me just say, it's a great grape, and I would love to work with it again. Had I taken it a little more seriously, I needed more quantity to take it a little bit more serious, but could have guided it into a direction that people would have loved.
Well, Baco, I think, is one of the interspecific cultivars.
Yes.
That, has often given the bad name to those grapes because it seems to me, and I'm not a winemaker, but it seems to me problematic. a lot of the Baco Noirs I've had have been tough, sinewy, chewy, a little over extracted and, harshly acidic. But even, we talked about Oregon. Some vineyards in Oregon have made Baco Noir that, was good, but it was still problematic. And it wasn't until Guy Drew down in Cortez, no longer making wine under the Guy Drew label, but he had a Baco Noir from a vineyard that, I believe that was the one he said was supposedly dry farmed by the Anasazi.
Wow.
Hundreds of years ago. So one of the few dry farmed vineyards in Colorado, but it was stunning, absolutely stunning. So I think Baco's a tough one to start with, maybe, but yeah, it can make some really, really nice wines. I think it was Jackrabbit Hill. No, they had a rosé of Marshall Foch, which is another finicky hybrid grape that has always had problems, but their rosé out of Jackrabbit was remarkable.
Well, that's about all I have, Doug.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come chat and talk about interspecific cultivars.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to refer to them as hybrid grapes because it's just easier.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm not going to be afraid of them anymore. But, okay, we have one last question before you go.
Okay.
If there was a wine named after you, what would it be?
Oh, dear. I got started drinking wine because in college, when I was probably under 21, my German professor assigned me a report on the brand new, at that time, German wine laws. And I thought, well, I've got to do some research on this. And fortunately, the liquor store down the street was very accommodating. And that was the 76 vintage, which was one of the greatest vintages of that century.
Wow.
Out of Germany. So, I started drinking Riesling, and if that's the only thing I could drink for the rest of my life, I would still be happy. Not necessarily sweet Riesling, dry as well, but if it had my name on it, I would probably be a Riesling.
We've tasted a couple of great wines today.
Thank you for sharing those.
You're very welcome. And appreciate you coming down.
Sure.
And hanging out with us. And you got any closing thoughts?
Enjoy a glass of Colorado wine whenever you can.
That's our show for this week. Thank you so much for listening to Denver Wine Radio. Your homework for the week is to go out and taste some Colorado wine. If you have any questions or comments, or just want to let us know what you're drinking, go to denverwineradio.com, where you can email us or leave us a voice message. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, put some altitude in your glass.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.
Hey, podcast listener, this is Andrea Askowitz.
And this is Allison Langer. We're both from Writing Class Radio, a podcast we started about 7 years ago.
And that's why it's gotten so good, because we've gotten a lot of practice. You'll hear true personal stories that will move you, stories that will make you cringe, laugh, cry, run the whole gamut of emotions.
And if you're looking for a writing retreat, writing classes, we offer those as well.
We also are open to submissions. So if you have a story you'd like to share, please go to writingclassradio.com and view our guidelines.
Available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at writingclassradio.com.